Okay, okay. So I'll start again. My name is Joy Robinson. I am one of the adult services librarians at Piscataway Public Library. Thank you for joining us this evening. I want to especially thank the National Council of Negro Women, Raritan Valley Chapter, and the Piscataway African American Seniors Club, who are co-hosts this evening. This program was made possible by a grant from the New Jersey Council for the Humanities, a state partner of the National Endowment for Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities or of the New Jersey Council for the Humanities. And now I will introduce Rachelle. Rachelle Parker was selected winner of the Furious Flower Poetry Prize, the James Madison University, and won, okay, I'm sorry, that came out wrong. So Rachelle Parker was selected winner of the Furious Flower Poetry Prize at James Madison University. Is that right?
Yes.
And won third prize in the Allen Ginsberg Poetry Award in 2020. Her work appears or is forthcoming in About Place Journal, Rhino Poetry, and the Adirondack Review. Rachelle is also published in the anthology The Breakbeat Poets, Black Girl Magic. Her photographic work debuted in the spring 2021 issue of Orion magazine. Currently, she is a part of a collaborative project, Arts, that's ARTS, by the People, Moving Words 2021. Thank you, Rachelle. Welcome.
Thank you.
So excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. I'd like to thank the Piscataway Library for inviting me here, and Joy Robinson, patience, for getting everything up and running. Behind the scenes is always important for us. I hope you guys are going to have a wonderful time tonight. We're going to read some poems. I'm going to read my poem and then read poems that I feel speak to what it is I'm trying to say, bring everyone on board with thoughts of this legacy, this great legacy we have to celebrate Juneteenth as our poetry jubilee. I'm going to take a moment before we get started and ask you to, as I begin this first poem, I'm going to ask you to invite an ancestor into the room, of someone that was your hero, into the room. So this poem I'm going to read is by Langston Hughes, and it's Still Here. I've been scarred and battered, my hopes the wind unscattered. Snow has frizzed me, sun has baked me. Looks like between them, they done tried to make me stop laughing, stop loving, stop living. But I don't care. I am still here. So I found that to be a good way to start out an evening. And if you feel like any of these poems are giving you some special feelings, you want to share, just put in the chat, still here. And as Joy said, we'll be taking questions throughout the program. And so feel free to pop those in the chat also. Ode to Walt Whitman, the housing projects. 13 stories pushed through cracks, capped with water tanks and smokestacks, insulated from the big bad world, my dreams and imagination swirled. Held my white concrete walls were a blank slate, held my name up in bright red paint, enough flights of stairs to fly down, steps taken 2 by 2 until on the ground. Summer, you offer the most fun. Long days, long kisses from the sun, yellow outlines for games with cans, part of a day with no set plans. Maple trees lined our racetrack. The tar, if you fell, showed no slack. Jump rope slaps from telephone wire. No amount of number rocks could tire. Doting on us kids to show your care. The ice cream truck's weight you'd bear. Halls are now dank and dark. Every kind of crime left its mark. Silver chain links replaced with black bars. Scaffolding began to block the stars. As brick and mortar swell with fears, panes and panes of glass shed tears. Never daunted by all these things, you still know the heart that sings. Musty jacket, tattered and worn, at attention and blowing your horn. Fiercely, you continue standing guard over little girls in cowboy boots and leotards. So that was my introduction to, I want to say, the everyday life that we live, that we should be celebrating at Juneteenth. And that was my part of my growing up, and how place can hold you also. So Mrs. Lang was a teacher of mine. Mrs. Lang, I had a teacher once. I don't know which was bigger, her heart or her eyes. She saw through my tears, raggedy coat, and crooked parts. She saw all the way down in me, her palms on brick, looking in a well. And the poem that I found that spoke to that poem for me was a Jacqueline Johnson poem. And it is entitled Carolina Legato for Edna Robinson. Most Sunday afternoons found you in the parlor room. John Thompson piano riffs resonating through closed doors. Worked your magic on some young soul who would rather be in the park playing stickball, volleyball, anything but music. Sit up, you would shout, pushing the uncouth and lazy out of every last one of them. Form of the body as important as sound, making like secret lovers doing a two-step. Worked in the Black free schools, teaching the unfree to imagine, write, and read. Tried your best at a marriage that lasted no longer than a season. Summer peaches rotting in the skin. Later traveled to Illinois, then Buffalo, and for a moment escaped predictability, old South segregation. Back to Carolina coast, where you became fundy, turning out a generation of preachers, doctors, and artists in whom you left music's sacred imprint. Lady of grace, whom elders called refined. Soft-spoken, yet a woman heard and followed. You defied rules with chiffon dresses and flowered hats, owned more property than a city planning commission deemed possible for a Black woman. You played music on an old upright piano, keys yellowed, tuned to perfection, where you rescued children from mothers who would cheat them of life, bringing music to their witless, sightless souls. So in my work, I also try to use vernacular that I would think were indicative of the first generation of, maybe not even the first generation, but of our ancestors who were not allowed to read, learn to read, and learn to write. So this is my poem, No Blossom. There was a girl child for me once. Her wanna come to me so bad, eyes told her no. Her calls me mama, mama dot. Baby, this no place for you, I tells her. Eyes wants to be with you likes before. I tells her, it ain't likes before. Show it is, her say. Listen to the conch shell. No, baby, before I could hold you and could feed you my full teeth. You could come, I's come to you. My belly be closed, Blossom. I's mark myself with a knife for I's do. Please, Mama Dot, I's come, meet me by the river. I's sure will not. This river got too much in them waters. Bones piled up in there, bottom ragged. No, not this time. I likes you in my heart. But no buts. There's you safe. There you stay put. So that was a poem I shared with a poet friend of mine. And she introduced me to a new poet, Georgia Douglas Johnson. She said my work reminded her of this poet. And so I looked her up and found the poem that she was talking about. And it was pretty amazing to know that this woman and I were thinking alike in two different timelines. Black Woman by Georgia Douglas Johnson. Don't knock at the door, little child. I cannot let you in. You know not what a world this is, of cruelty and sin. Until I come to you, wait in the still eternity. The world is cruel, cruel, child. I cannot let you in. Don't knock at my heart, little one. I cannot bear the pain of turning deaf ear to your call time and time again. You do not know the monster men inhabiting the earth. Be still, my precious child. I must not give you birth. So as mothers and women, we know of the plight of the world, and we don't want to bring our children into it. And this poem by Afaa Michael Weaver refers to a mother that was left behind and separated from her children. I'm thinking on the shores of Africa. In Charleston, the slave market. A mother speaks to a dream that speaks to her on an Igbo bed. Tell me where my children are. She asks of their air that makes itself a door. Beyond the door, over the last touch, the last smell of her children's hair full of sun, speckled with dirt from playing. How do they eat now? She asks of the dream, but the dream is too kind to tell the truth. The markets where they stand naked, white women poking at them, looking over places only mothers touch, shopping for Black pets for white children, for girls who can grow and make more Black children, as if they are gardens. And what gardens they are to a mother on her Igbo bed who asks her husband, old man, who cannot make children, what do we do? Shall we stop speaking? The dream dries itself up, pulls away so grief can become deaf and kindness to hearts too full to sleep. And they sleep the sleep of wind over wild grass, the moon over impotent prayers, the wild sounds of angels and hyenas. They sleep until sleep is all there is. The grace of the end of wondering where in Charleston one child is sold here, one child there, one swimming leagues down under in the dark tongue of the ocean where thunderheads in Charleston Harbor cannot send the rain. Mama's little baby got something. Mama's little baby got sweet potato pie. Mama's little baby got something. Mama's little baby got hot butter biscuit. Gonna bring it to you, mama, right now.
There's some comments in the chat. No questions, but some comments. Tracy says, those poems gave me thoughts of beloved.
Yes.
And Ellen says, very well done. Still true, the monster men.
Yes. And we're still here. Let's remember,
yes.
we are still here, no matter of how this legacy is panning out for us. We are still here, the resilience, right? So we'll move on to some more poems. One that I think was always a question, I guess, of mine when we talk about our ancestors. Well, I'm going to start with mine. Yeah, I'm going to start with his. So Dudley Randall edited an anthology, The Black Poets, and this poem is from there, and it's actually by him, Dudley Randall. Ancestors. Why are our ancestors always kings and princes and never the common people? Was the old country a democracy where every man was a king? Or did the slave catchers steal only the aristocrats and leave the field hands, laborers, street cleaners, garbage collectors, dishwashers, cooks, and maids behind? My own ancestor, research reveals, was a swineherd who tended the pigs in the royal pigsty and slept in the mud among the hogs. Yet I am as proud of him as of any king or prince dreamed up in fantasies of bygone glory. And so then my poem is, the news flashes, another badge glints in the sun, and nobody from accounting is watching but me. My niece in front of the ramen spot. My nephew packing his bass into his hatchback. My nephew changing a flat after hitting a rock in the road. Their mother, my poor sister, chewing her nails down with worry. My mama leaving the casino with the black carton of players in the crook of her arm. My daddy picking up the dry cleaning. My younger sister leaving the hairdresser, her doobie held by bobby pins. My baby sister walking her pit bull shishi. My aunt stepping from her gray Cadillac SRX. Her brother-in-law transporting cadavers. My two brothers-in-law making a run to the soda house. The brothers using the monkey bars to do chin-ups. Miss Jones, Eleanor's mother. Miss Harris, Laura's mother. Miss Ann pushing a shopping cart with a 5-pound bag of sugar and a box of Tetley tea to fill that big old pickle jar. Rakeem home from college, his parents picking him up from the bus station. Rakeem home from jail, his parents picking him up from the bus station. Shanika and them, Pastor Reed, Miss Maggie's boy, Running John, Lying John, Johnny O, Craig in leopard print capris, high school sweetheart just over the George Washington Bridge, my cousins coming over for bikini night with pennies and plastic baggies, my cousins, my mama's daddy Sonny, my gram climbing the steps of the B-38, my gram's second husband dropping off his susu hand to his old job, Grandma Reese walking us to the car and giving directions to Gino's for a whiz wit, Uncle Junior, Uncle Gerald, my grandfather, my grandfather's grandfathers, them babies, me leaving a poetry reading. And my poem also made me think of another poem by Cynthia Manick, which is entitled What I Know About Blues. I know butterflies can taste with their feet. Blackberry vinegar or apple water can break a fever. I know the sharp length of my mother's tongue. Use every part of the fruit and stem, she'd say. Don't leave anything behind. I know the skin of mackerel is softer than an eyelid. I know salt, the way it sifts through tips, piling on a wife's lap like gold. Can you hear how I hold a breath inside? Use my body to say I can be your clementine. I can be your sweet baby. Yes, I know how to name things. I've been called little lady, pickaninny, gal, mamacita, the black one, the big one, the dark one, woman. Each name makes a map of me. And that poem actually, along with, I believe it was 3 other poems in her collection, were translated into French. And I just felt that that was another way that our legacy was growing and moving forward and informing descendants and possibly meeting up with a cousin in Paris at the market. So that's always exciting when you can just keep moving your poetry along and people's special words along. So that's great.
Yeah, Cynthia says a shout out to B38.
That's the bus in Brooklyn, the B38. And it's a very popular bus to get you cross town, as they call it. So thank you, Cynthia. So we, of course, other parts of our legacy is putting food on the table, earning a living, keeping our family safe, keeping our family fed. So my poem is Keeping Count. Berta's got a family to feed, a husband, hands calloused, a boy at her hip, a boy at her knee, a girl resting on apron strings. She come to know the meaning of piecework, hands that feel the fabric, heavy cotton or fine silk. Fingers that push threaded needle for basting stitches know how many pockets is needed. No 10 pockets gets you a pound of greens. No 50 pockets adds a chunk of meat. And no 100 gets you a whole meal on Sunday. A chicken brought to a boil, flour, lard, and water pulled together, rolled out thin, cut to squares, dumplings. Hot, fatty stock bubbles the dough to done. Berta know about keeping count. And I wrote that poem and I let my aunt read it. And she said, what do you know about that kind of work? And I said, I don't know. I think it's just something that I saw you guys talk about. So it's always good, again, when you call your ancestors into the room, they are always speaking to you. So the next poem is a Marilyn Nelson poem from her My Seneca Village collection, which is a book of verse. There actually was Seneca Village was actually where Central Park is in New York. I'm not sure how much larger it was than Central Park, but we know that that part was definitely housed Black residents, named their own town. So this one is her landowner, Andrew Williams, Boot Black, 1825. There ain't nothing shameful about good, honest work. It's a proud man that comes home with a decent wage. I keep my head down. I listen when rich folks talk. The finer the leather, the wiser the financial sage. 1 foot on my box, Mr. Man stands tapping the news on his knee, talking shop confidentially with a friend. I wipe off the filth, then with a clean rag, smooth his boot with lampblack, beeswax, and lanolin. I deal merchandise shipped in on the Erie Canal. Buy low, sell high, then buy land for the right to vote. You massage through his boot, caress his toes, his heel. If you're lucky, he'll say what's coming on tomorrow's boat. Thanks to dropped tips, I'm a black boot with his own place. I may bow at their knees, shushing with the horsehair brush, but I buff with spit on a rag to a mirrored face, aflame with pride, blazing like a burning bush. Everybody okay? We still here?
Still here. Got some comments, shout outs to Virginia folks and sweet memories and dumplings.
Dumplings. Okay, just bringing my thing up. So I don't think I can go reading without reading this one. It kind of encompasses like so many parts of our lives, our family, the people who teach us through living, and then, you know, how to, again, make their way. I worry about a Tatiana Jefferson's nephew, because who's going to teach him the things his mama can't get to? Who's going to take him across the Brooklyn Bridge the way I did my niece when she was teeny weeny? The Hudson River filling her nose in a stroller, on her bike with training wheels, then in shoes I thought too high for walking. Who gonna show him a dish like my Aunt Mary showed me, sweating onions in her olive green Dutch oven, the pieces of chicken thighs, the tomatoes canned, the tomato paste. Chicken cacciatore, she said, when I had only known fried and boiled for dumplings on Sundays. She worried that I would get the bay leaf out. She worried over and over about how it could slit your windpipe if you swallowed it. Who gonna show him how not to kill his own self? How to stay alive and well, build a home, appreciate lace curtains, china in a hutch, or gold-plated flatware? Who gonna make him know a good woman? Who gonna pass down a good cast iron pot?
Jacqueline says she likes how you bring the stories of family alive.
Thank you. So after that poem, you're going to run into a couple of these Things Only a Mother Can Prepare You For, which was by Nicole Homer. The oldest sat in the passenger seat. He grew his first mustache at 13. His little brother's chest was still a birdcage sitting in the back seat of his best friend's Chevy. Jason was crooked gap grin, dirty jokes, and the only white face. Among the 5 boys, he was the smallest by 1¼ inches. His jokes all had the same punchline. Jason sat in the back seat between 2 boys, each of them next to a roll down window. In the front, 2 more Black boys, 2 more open windows. All 5 sang in unison with the radio and prayed to the same God. For years now, they had whispered in the back of their church about girls who stood in the front of the church whispering about them. The 4 Black boys in the car thought about their mothers when they passed the sedan, white and unmarked. Jason sat in the middle of the back seat with no warning rising up in him. His mother had never bought flowers for a young man's funeral or advised her son how to avoid attending his own. Say yes, officer, and no, officer. Keep your hands on the wheel. Every boy but Jason breathed deep and remembered their lines. When the red and blue noise tangled in the air above the car, the Chevy answered by bringing its body, already more rusted than when they left home, to the shoulder of the road. 4 of the boys were pale as dead men. The officer pulled them all out of the car with only his voice and badge. Jason was praying to the same God his friends were. Those 4 Black boys eyeing the blue uniform and the same face it always wore. Jason got half-hidden sideways looks when the officer pulled him away from the others and spoke to him in hushed tones. Are you okay? He did not understand. In the side view mirror, he saw his friends. The man's eyes repeated, are you okay? He stepped closer to the boy, close enough to offer the secret handshake of his concern. With them, Jason's friends, several feet and a world away, stood staring at the ground, looking apologetic, thinking of their mothers, of Black dresses, of their own crime scene faces. Jason, somehow whiter now than when they had left home, nodded like an apology to the boys he grew up with. Back in the car, the radio offered up a song they could all sing like a hymn to the same God. He's still here.
Still here. Tracy has a question. Do all of your poems have connections to your ancestry or community?
Good question. Thank you for asking. Yes, they do. Because I think that we learn from our ancestors, and then our community is where we grow and share those lessons. And everyone else, if you're in a like-minded community, especially, and I think sometimes if it's not so, even if it's a diverse community, you still are living what you were taught. And everyone does the best that they do when they raise their children. So yes, I do fall back on my ancestors and the resilience and the strength that they had to live in a world that's not so kind sometimes. So, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say much has been said recently about generational pain.
Yes.
But we can also, as you say, talk about generational resilience, generational joy.
Joy. Still here.
And, yeah.
So I'm going to follow that since Tulsa is happening before our very eyes. I will share a Van Jordan poem. After 75 years, Greenwood, Oklahoma gets a statue. Fate sent Dick Rowland's flat, feet over the tripwire, threshold of an elevator into the arms of a white woman. The kind of mistake that could get any 19-year-old Black man hanged. that could give cause for match heads to dance in Oklahoma heat, that could send Black families running into the woods while their homes burned like the voice of God. He just stumbled, was the final police statement. But the lynch mob jury already waited outside where the Negro Wall Street of America would fall because one man fell. 40 city blocks, 23 churches, 400 shops, and 600 homes, and all Black. Can you imagine Roland's eyes when he fell out of that elevator, when he saw the town burn like a cigarette in a nervous mouth, when shotguns ushered Black men from the convention hall into the streets and out of this world? How do you describe when something goes so terribly wrong, folks never talk about what they did to women? Armstrong's gravelly voice cannot sing of Greenwood. The trombone can't even hit these low notes. The Black marble mirrors, survivors still holding hats over their hearts, while children too young to remember play around the feet of the monument. One child runs past, stops, and bends down to secure his loose shoelace. Still here.
Still here.
Still here. So I have a few more. Since I know I have family on the line, I'm going to read it. It's my first time reading this one out. Cousins, bob for apples in a Gavinal's tub. Cousins rip gifts open from under grandma's Christmas tree. Cousins be the only ones at your birthday party till 4, 5, 6 years old. Cousins get their hair washed by one mama, pressed by the other mama. Cousins share a small fry and small orange soda and cheeseburger. Cousins keep each other company when making a boo-boo. Cousins, no matter the house, there was cod liver oil. Cousins reach for your mama when they get scared. Cousins all scream ill when Pop cooks his possum. Cousins bring they box of fat chalk to draw a hopscotch. Cousins always call you by your house name all the time. Cousins is the one the mamas knew who belonged to her. Cousins been riding with you since before you got your license. Cousins go off to college and drag you with them. Cousins are automatic bridesmaids and flower girls. Cousins, mamas say they only tell your secrets for your own good. Cousins be having that pool party at the condo. Cousins will start a book club up in a heartbeat. Cousins take their kids to Disney together, cruise together. Cousins, cousins, and more cousins. Cousins mean lots more to you when they mama and your mama, them sisters, both get to cancer, and all you got is all them times y'all shared stuff. And now you share salt from tears stored in a mason jar. And you wish you'd learned to punch down dough for a batch of yeast rolls and handle a meat grinder to mince clams for fritters and heft an axe to bust logs for the potbelly stove and wring a chicken's neck and get your book learning and become a scientist and share a cure for sickled cells.
Well, Amina says, thank God for cousins that carry us through life.
Thank God. I got some good ones. So that makes me relate to Love Song for Elsie, Jean, and Poe by Mahogany L. Browne. I never heard my grandmother say I love you to my grandfather. My grandfather was soon to say he loved us ashy brown pawn pieces and children, your grandmother just mean. He'd smile with the honesty weeping from his wrinkles. My grandmother, a brownstone dish, hand-crossed southern full of prim, proper and hot water cornbread would pay him no mind. Her neck a swivel swing cracked his old man banter, and she could ignore him like the loudest sirens serenading an Oakland sky on Friday. I ain't stunting you, she waved, kitchen spoon, swimming, gravy, or collard greens. Her hips swayed along to the rhythm under her breath. His eyes danced along. She pretended like she know he was checking for her beat. Later, The cancer ate through his bones like chalk. She stay oiling his flaky skin and scrubbing the walls with Clorox. She stay humming a song through the nights. His lungs lurched for air. Only her hips and his ears knew the words. You'll hear that. So now I'm going to go into my last few poems. If you guys have questions, go ahead and put them in. I think we're going to have time. We still here. So this poem is also from the Black Poets Anthology edited by Dudley Randall, and it's by Nikki Giovanni. Knoxville, Tennessee. I always like summer best. You can eat fresh corn from daddy's garden, and okra and greens and cabbage and lots of barbecue and buttermilk and homemade ice cream at the church picnic, and listen to gospel music outside at the church homecoming, and go to the mountains with your grandmother and go barefooted and be warm all the time, not only when you go to bed and sleep. Go follow that up. I mean, we all have grandmothers, and someone who was like a grandmother. So you can just like insert your grandmother's name in there and your favorite color, favorite flavor ice cream in there. Because now we get into the food of it all, right?
We got a question from
Sure.
Tracy. She says, do you find it difficult to write about the hard parts of our history, or is it cathartic?
Luckily, when I write the hard parts, it's something that usually just comes out. I don't necessarily sit down and say, I want to write these hard things. They kind of sneak in on me when I'm just trying to write a poem about something, like the Cousins poem. I just really started out naming cousins things. And then by the time I got to it, it was like, wait, this is really about the mothers of these cousins and their relationship. And what they, we're first generation, I'm first generation, raised up north. So they brought a lot of their Southern ways with them. And I guess dreams and fears, things that they had to leave behind. You find out lots of things as you do find lots of things out as you go through your family, and you start figuring out the conversations that you heard when you were little and they whispered or spoke in Pig Latin. So, yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to have those pop in. When I'm writing it, it's fine. Sometimes when I'm reading it, it's actually a little more touching than when I'm writing it. Thanks. That's a great question. So I have Cutting Greens by Lucille Clifton. Curling them around, I hold their bodies in obscene embrace, thinking of everything but kinship. Collards and kale strain against each strange other, away from my kiss-making hand and the iron bed pot. The pot is black. The cutting board is black. My hand, and just for a minute, the greens roll black under the knife, and the kitchen twists dark on its spine, and I taste in my natural appetite the bond of live things everywhere. So that also, I think, is why when she says that the bond of live things everywhere, that makes me feel, or it ensures me that ancestors are still around and they're still alive. And I believe that that's kind of what soul is, when you are in touch with all parts of your being. Do we have time for 3 more poems or just 2?
Let's go for 3.
Let's go for 3. So as I'm reading that and thinking about live and kinship and being together, I feel that we are all part of one another. I do feel that we may live in more than one life. So I'm going to read my poem, Me and Him, We Together. He is there in a bubble in the left corner of my mind. Does he see me? Does he know I see him? The time his knee hurts, he rubs with large knuckled fingers. Does he know that my bones know his bones, the marrow jellied? That together we remember the gazelle, that together we remember the tobacco fields, that together we remember grandma and always having sweet potatoes in our pockets. My mouth speaks, his ear perks. He thinks it's a fly and swats the remembering away. Sometimes he's close in the circle, his grandchildren at his side, lips, nose, and eyes pushed through, stretching the bubble, unable to break the membrane, the cord, the thread that stitches through, a bracelet dangling charms, all our lives sewn together, blood left on a knot, pulled tight, cut with teeth. So for me, again, that is ancestors, and that's way, way back. And I think these things come to us when we're least expecting it. I think earlier, Joy mentioned the Grail, and I think that's where when we are dreaming and you wake up and you feel wise, and because wisdom has soaked in your body through these dreams at night. So we are down to our final two poems. Still here.
Still here.
And I didn't know which one to read first or last before, and I still don't. So we're just going to go with what we've been doing. Now we go with this one. African dance is here. It came across the ocean, cradled by the, oh, I'm sorry, y'all. That's by Ameerah H. Ahmad. And it's her African dance is here. It came across the ocean, cradled by the rhythm of the waves. It was here wailing as it bended and sweated in the cotton fields. It was here dancing through plantation pain. It was here leaping to the drumbeat of freedom. African dance went to church, fell all the way down to its knees, screamed hallelujah in the praise dance. It was here when we did the boogie woogie and the Charleston. It was here in the Lindy Hop and the jitterbug. It was swing dancing. It was bebopping from darkness until dawn. It was tap dancing down history lane. It was here in the slop and the jerk when we did the waddle and boogaloo. African dance was here too. It was turning our waist in the twist, contracted our spines as we shook our hips, then moved smoothly into the camel and temptation walk. It spun all around and around. It dropped to the floor. It did a quick split. It popped up from the hunger and managed a mean mashed potatoes. It roasted a fat, funky chicken. It was here in the robot while refusing to be one. It stepped onto the soul train and rolled into the unity line. It busted out real cool, battled in the breakdance, glided into the electric slide. It turned it out in the cha-cha slide. It is here in the flow of Black love, holding a man and a woman tightly in a slow drag. It is the passion and rhythm of a two-step and a dip. It is here in our youth, whiling all in and out of hip hop. It's forever awake. It's doing its thing in the Harlem Shake. It is here stirring up the reggae. It's a whining in the soca. It's a mixing in the salsa. It's a walking in the cha-cha and the lambada and the merengue. Ole, ole, ole. It's burning hot in the limbo and in the mambo. It's grooving in a jazz tempo. Yes, African dance is here. It marches on. You can see it marching in the drill team. It's stomping on a Christopher Columbus parade. It's bouncing for blocks on a Black Heritage Day. It is here on the basketball court, jumping in the air, taking a ball into a slam dunk. You can see it in the middle of a double Dutch rope, flexing with beauty. African dance is here. It is here breathing. It is here traveling through generations and generations and generations.
Still here.
So we're down to our last poem. I'd like to thank you guys for being here. I hope you have some questions that you could put in the chat so that you can ask. And this is my poem, Dancing on Beat. Having rhythm is the only way to remember where home is. The pounding of wildebeest, the clacking of calabash for a stew cooked in a cauldron on open flame, Without the beat of my mother's land, I would forget. I would wither and lay piled high in a heap of skin, bones bent under the weight of what I've come to do. Calves stretched and knotted with grief and sorrow, the rumble of the coast lit by red gold, calls in the twilight of morn, the tight-skinned djembe responds, a wave of thumps taps my shoulders and my toes, moving in the mist of Angola seeds, leaves between my teeth. I'm in a hull, ready to sprout again. Thank you guys for listening and joining us tonight.
Snaps, snaps, snaps. Oh, someone said airborne. Ashe, ashe. So there were lots of lovely comments. Outstanding. You've given us life. I'm gonna ask you all, I can invite you all to unmute if you wanna, you know, remember, we're still recording, so if you're shy, you can still just type it into the chat. But if you have a question, you want to use your own voice, you're welcome to do that.
How long have you been writing?
I started writing maybe 10 years ago now. Poetry, actually I started writing a novel, and then I took my first poetry workshop in 2014, and I haven't touched my novel since then, Bad Girl. I look at it though, it's there, I know it's there waiting for me, but poetry can be selfish sometimes. So yes, I've been writing for 12 years, poetry and fiction. Thank you.
Did a wonderful job, Rachel. This is Jackie.
Hi, Jackie. We have someone on the line. Can I share?
Sure.
Okay. So the poem Carolina Legato for Edna Robinson, the author is on the line with us. Jacqueline Woodson. Jacqueline Woodson. So sorry, Jacqueline. Jacqueline Johnson.
I'll take Woodson.
You all would. Yes. So I enjoyed reading this collection. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. Glad I got to read that poem.
Thank you.
I loved hearing Fundy and how we turn into teachers after as we bring in so much experience through our lives, and then we can help others. And I will say that I believe that you are a Fundy in your own right. There are lots
thank you.
that I've learned from you, watching you, and participating in your poetry. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
I have a question in the chat from Nicole. Well, first she sends you a compliment. Love these poems. What is your process in writing? Where do you find inspiration?
Process and inspiration, they are definitely two different things. Thanks for the question. Sometimes I have something that I want to talk about, and I have to wait around almost for it to come to me. And then sometimes there are more than one incident that happens that I guess makes it go together for me. Like the poem that I read earlier, where I mentioned everyone, like basically in my family and growing up, the news flashes, another badge glitz in the sun. I was next to someone right after Charlottesville, and no one talked about Charlottesville at all. And then I think that Thursday a bomb went off in Spain, and she was like, "Oh, they bombed Spain." And I thought that was strange because we were on fire for like 4 days. And then I went away to a writing retreat, and someone asked, name a time when you felt alone. And that poem came out of that. So inspiration can come as small as someone's comment sometimes I sit down and I know I want to write something about my aunt or my grandmother or a time when I was a kid. And that's when I guess that's when the process kicks in more, because you have to gather your thoughts and make notes and until you have a poem, and you ask everybody you know to read it until it's good. Thank you for that question.
Like, poems are like children to me, and like your children, you love them all, but I'm going to ask you a mommy question. Is there one that you love most?
I can't say one that I love the most, but I can say there are some that I like, probably, but they're for different reasons. Some of them are because of the way I came to them. Some of the, or I should say, the one is how I came to it, and one is the way that other people respond to it. And some of them kind of will come out, and you don't feel like you had a hand in it. So I can read it like everyone else reads it. That's how Tatiana Jefferson happened for me. I truly was worried about a Tatiana Jefferson's nephew. And it was just, again, a prompt in a writing class said something you worry about. And then I started that poem. And what was great about it is, I think it was last year, I brought up information on a Tatiana Jefferson, and her siblings gave a press conference. And in the press conference, she did say, she did things with him that I don't do with him. I don't play video games with him. I don't, run up and down and play basketball with him, things like that, children things. The video game, she definitely said, but she said other children things that she didn't do. And I find that that's what, aunts do for their nieces and nephews.
Thank you.
And what my aunt did for me, and which is what the poem is. So it starts out with my niece, then it goes into my aunt, and it goes into the lesson that she was teaching me by showing me how to cook. It was more than just learning how to make chicken cacciatore.
Definitely, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great question, thank you.
Well, we have about a minute left. Does anyone else have a question or a comment that they want to share, or
This is a wonderful idea to take everyone off mute and have them ask the question. So that's great. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
I don't have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Hi, this is Dashika Copeland, and I am the outreach coordinator for Piscataway Library. Thanks to Jubilee library staff. And I just want to say you did an awesome job, especially when you spoke about the dances and double dutch. I still jump double dutch to this day. You talked about stepping when you go into weddings and parties, and we always stepping. All of that brought back memories. And I heard about the B38 bus. You grew up in Brooklyn?
I did grow up in Brooklyn.
I'm from Brooklyn, but I was raised in Newark, but my family's still in Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, Flatbush, all of those areas.
We were in Fort Greene, Bed-Stuy, but over closer to the Bushwick side. Okay. And of course, I grew up there, so plenty of friends in Bed-Stuy and Flatbush also.
Okay.
So have you been there? You know that everything looks different now.
Yes. Now I just go to Sunset Park. My mom and my brother there in Sunset Park, so I go there now. Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Brooklyn,
yes, right. Brooklyn born. Yes.
okay. Anyone else want to make a comment? Or
okay. I just want to congratulate. This is Ellen Wright. I just want to congratulate my sister in poetry, Rachelle. You did Ellen. So proud of you. This was wonderful and such an achievement. And congratulations, sweetheart.
Thank you for joining. Love you.
Okay. Well, I think Ellen spoke for all of us. It's a wonderful poem, a wonderful program, and you read some wonderful poems. And we're also grateful that you shared them with us. And I got a question that was just directed to me about sharing the list of your poems with the folks. So is that okay? Is that something we could do?
I think that's something we can do.
Okay.
So you mean the list of all of the poems that were read? Okay,
Yes.
good.
So we'll send out an email with the list of poems and a link to this recording. As I said, fingers crossed that it worked right.
I hope so.
Okay.
But thank you, Joy Robinson, again for you know, getting this Juneteenth Jubilee on the calendar. It's amazing that we have come so far, and we definitely need to recognize accomplishments such as this. I mean, it's becoming a national holiday in so many different ways and places. So that's great. As we move through this week, let's all think of, you know, of something that we need to be proud of, that we need to celebrate because of on Juneteenth. So we have a couple of days, right, to get it down.
Yeah, and don't forget your hibiscus tea or your sorrel, your red beverage, strawberry lemonade.
So strawberry lemonade.
Represent.
Strawberry wine.
Well, okay.
The kind you make yourself.
Okay.
Can I just ask if anybody knows of you know, really good poetry workshops? If you could put it in the chat. I'm always looking for more poetry workshops, virtual workshops. So if anybody has one that you can recommend, please put it in the chat before we go. Thank you.
Wilhelmina, that's great. Thank you so much. I see that there where you said affirming our connections, because they are really important.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you again to our co-hosts, the National Council for Negro Women, the Raritan Valley chapter, and thank you to the Piscataway African American Seniors Club, and again to the New Jersey Council for the Humanities. Yeah, I hope that you will continue to look at our calendar of upcoming events. Rachelle will be joining us again in the fall for another poetry program. So you stay tuned to those. And you've inspired me to look into poetry workshops. So perhaps look to our calendar for that as well. Thank you everyone for your questions and your comments and your participation. And thank you, honored guest, Rachelle.
Thank you.
You brought the spirit of Juneteenth to us, and your poems, I literally had goosebumps. I had chills for some of them. They just resonated so deeply. So thank you for that. I'm gonna go call my cousins now. And then maybe I'll have some greens and some.
Exactly. Get those cousins. Dumplings. They don't cook so much though, those cousins of mine. You know, they will sometimes.
You know,
they do share.
Yeah, it's falling down. I don't know. What you gonna do? Okay. Thank you again. Be well, be safe.
Hope to see you guys in the fall.
Yep. Enjoy yourselves. Take care. Love each other.
Yes.
Bye.
He's still here.
Still here.